Good evening. Welcome to the 2019 C. Henry Smith Peace Oratorical Contest. My name is Jason Samuel. I'm an assistant professor of communication and honored and privileged to be your host this evening. Tonight we continue the tradition of speech making, which has a rich history at Goshen College. An Intercollegiate Peace Association contest was first held in May 1907. Just think about that for a second. That's a long time, 112 years of this contest. It's one of the most prestigious events on campus, year in and year out without fail. Goshen College students have been speaking their minds on peace and justice issues ever since. We're especially grateful that two former contestants in the speech contest, Hans and Bonnie Hildebrand, several years ago made a generous contribution to the contest, which has permitted us to award more substantive prizes to our finalists. Tonight, however, is a special night, because tonight we dedicate the 2019 C. Henry Smith Peace Oratorical Contest to Goshen College Associate Professor of Peace, Justice, and Conflict Studies, Carolyn Shrock Shank. Carolyn died early Wednesday morning, February 6th, after a brief hospitalization at the age of 63. I'm borrowing some words here. Carolyn Shrock Shank joined the Goshen College faculty in 2000. She retired in 2017, but continued to teach the popular Inside Out exchange program. And that was at the Elkhart County Correctional Center, which paired Goshen College students with inside incarcerated students at the jail. Shrock Shank was a leader and a leading expert on Mennonite mediation and reconciliation, facilitating mediations and interventions, speaking at conferences in churches, publishing articles, and building bridges to the community. At Goshen, she developed a class entitled Transforming Conflict and Violence, which continues to be required as a core class for students. Carolyn's signature course, Transforming Conflict and Violence, was and remains by far the most popular peace, justice, and conflict studies course, said Carolyn's longtime department colleague, Joe Lichty. He himself a professor of peace, justice, and conflict studies. Tonight's competition personifies the character of Carolyn's life and will serve as an annual reminder of her legacy and as a peace advocate, teacher, and practitioner. Our four finalists this evening have already passed through a preliminary round that was held in January. They have worked hard shaping and polishing their speeches for you tonight. Their names and the speech titles are listed in the program that you should have in your hand. The order of speakers was determined by random drawing. Sarah Zuni, a senior nursing major, will introduce the speakers this evening. In preparing for the contest, Sarah has been an invaluable assistant. She's the real MVP. Thank you, Sarah. Come on up.
Thank you, Jason. Okay. First, to the stage, we welcome Deborah Tshidimu, a senior nursing major from Democratic Republic of Congo. She will deliver a speech titled The Human in Me, How MJ Shaped the Heart of a Congolese Girl. Let's give her a round of applause. Then we will have Ronit Goswami, a first-year exercise science major and a sport management minor from Goshen, will deliver a speech titled Interfaith Exploration and Learning. Let's give him a round of applause. Then, Emily Stoltzfus, a senior social work major and a Spanish minor from Goshen, will deliver a speech titled Getting the Words Right, Rethinking Our Measures of Education. Let's give her a round of applause. Our final and fourth speaker is Mandira Panta, a junior sustainability studies major from Nepal, will deliver a speech titled Why Climate Change. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Sarah. We are honored tonight to have 4 judges for this evening's contest. Will you please stand as I introduce you? Ellen Rudy Froese was a pastor in Canada for nearly 2 decades before moving to Goshen in 2011 to teach at Anabaptist Mennonite Biblical Seminary in Elkhart. He has a PhD in homiletics, the art and theology of preaching, from the Toronto School of Theology, and teaches in the areas of preaching, voice, storytelling, and pastoral ministries. Alan has studied voice for actors, preachers, and speakers in the Kristen Linklater tradition for over 20 years. He has preached over 600 sermons. He is married to Marilyn, and they have 3 fantastic young adult children. Alan is honored, note the Canadian spelling that you can't see, but I can, and happy to be involved in the Peace Oratorical Contest. Thank you, Alan. Richard R. Aguirre is the Community Impact Coordinator for Goshen College. His responsibilities include raising funds and developing programs to recruit and retain students, linking students to experiential learning opportunities, creating partnerships with community leaders and organizations, and serving as a community organizer to address social justice causes important to students. He also co-teaches a class on identity, culture, and community for first-year students, is a member of the college's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, and is a member of the Racial Misconduct Response Team. He has a bachelor's degree in journalism from California State University, Fresno, and he is an elder at Berkey Avenue Mennonite Fellowship. Richard, thank you. Melinda Berry is a member of the teaching faculty at Anabaptist Mennonite Biblical Seminary, located in Elkhart. As a peace theologian, Melinda's teaching focuses on theology and ethics while covering a range of courses including church and race, creation care, human sexuality and Christian ethics, and practicing and embodying nonviolence. She has also become a student and practitioner of nonviolent communication. Prior to teaching at Goshen College, Bethany Theological Seminary, and now AMBS, where she earned a master's degree in peace studies before completing her doctoral in theology and ethics at Union Seminary in the city of New York. Melinda. And because it's a big night, we added a 4th judge, who's a veteran of this competition as a judge. So I'd like to introduce Adrienne Nesbitt, a Goshen College graduate, degrees in music and theater. She is the board president at Art House, Goshen's creative outlet for low barrier, high possibility venues for film, theater, comedy, music, and art. Adrienne is also the coordinator for First Fridays, Goshen's monthly downtown block party, and the Riverbend Film Festival, a celebration of independent filmmaking entering its 17th year this May. Adrienne. And now, especially for the contestants, because no contestant likes a long introduction. And now we turn to the heart of our program this evening. 4 speeches, 4 personal meditations on issues of peace and justice. I invite you to listen closely. Electronic devices out of sight and out of mind. Our speakers share with us, beginning with Deborah, and then following in the order listed in your program.
It took me time to realize that the human in me, that inability to actually share another's thought, feeling, and sensation can deceive me. It took me time to realize that the human in me can blind me. It can trap me. It can give me time for fun, love, and excitement. But the human in me can never forget the pain he went through. Well, my pain is not unique. It's a pain we all feel at some point in life. It's a pain that you can call as if it's a pain of grief, a pain of loss, or a pain of feeling abandoned. Let me tell you, it's that pain that makes us human. And it's that pain that connects us to each other. And it's that pain that brings us together. In March 2017, John Sharp, a professor at Goshen College, where I previously studied, posted on Facebook asking for prayers for his son, Michael Sharp, which I will refer as MJ, and his co-worker, Zedla Caitlin, who were kidnapped, later killed in my country, Democratic Republic of the Congo, which I will refer as DRC. Well, DRC is the only country located in the central and southern coverage. It has a population of about 81 million people, and conflicts in my country dated more than 20 years now. But it doesn't mean that everybody in my country was at war. But it means small tribes and provinces were fighting for power, which led more than 5 million deaths since 1998. MJ Sharp was working for peace in the midst of those conflicts. Well, in 2005 to 2008, MJ Sharp served through Marinette's Mission Network. Later, he decided that he wanted to be one of the UN American experts working for peace in my country. He believed that peace and reconciliation in my country was possible. He believed that rebels would give up on the fight and live peacefully. And let me tell you, some of those rebels sat, listened, and cooperated with him. And I learned that 1,600 of those rebels gave up on the fight and lived peacefully. Dear friends, this is a story that happened 2 years ago. A story of sadness, surprise, anger, and resentment. A story that left many of us hurt. MJ was the first white American friend I made, not here in the US, but back home. When I heard that he has been killed, the past memory of when we first met came through my mind. I remember when I was 16 years old, I was following my father everywhere. Yeah. My father dragged me, said that, okay, let's go meet MJ Sharp. I was like, okay, I'm gonna meet some unknown guy somewhere that I don't know. But my father was convinced that meeting him, I would learn a lot. So I remember the first moment I saw MJ Sharp was the presence of peace in him. I asked myself, why has an American guy left his country to come here to learn about the culture, the people, the background, everything about my country that I didn't understand it back then? Before MJ kidnapping, I didn't care about the concept of peace because I thought it wasn't my business. I was a kid, I was a child. But after learning about MJ kidnapping, I spent my time praying to God for his safety. 2 weeks later, after learning about MJ's death, I spent my time being disappointed and abandoned by God, my country, and myself. Then I start asking myself, maybe that wasn't them, maybe that wasn't MJ, come on. I tried to understand in my mind what's going on, but could come up with no answers. I remember 4 years ago, he came to Goshen College, and he was presenting about his work for peace in my country. Okay, that was good. And after the presentation, I met him and told him the place he's gonna go work, that city that he's gonna go in my country was very dangerous. But MJ was convinced that he had to go. Let me ask you one question. Who should I blame? Tell me, who should I blame? Is it my country for not being in peace? Or is it MJ for going back to my country even though he knew it was that dangerous? Isn't that the question that we ask ourselves sometime in this room? Who should we blame? My sister got killed for war or violence or rape or depression, name it, but who should we blame? I came up with this understanding. A beautiful country without peace is like a beautiful tree without being watered. MJ Shrock had such a strong belief in the power of persuasion that he used to walk around DRC unharmed. He used to say, rebels love to talk about their past. But little did he know that those rebels were planning against him, some of those. After coming down, I read the Bible where it says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Okay, peacemakers. Who are the peacemakers? What does it mean to be a peacemaker? Nelson Mandela states that great peacemakers are all people of integrity, honesty, but humility. You can never have an impact on the society if you haven't changed yourself. Well, today, I want to honor all those who have impacted our society by giving up their lives. I want to honor all those who have shaped our society in different kinds. I want to really honor all those who fought for peace without giving up. For the job they have done, let us in this room never forget them. Let us in this room never put them aside. Let us in this room remember them every single day of our life. For the job they have done wasn't easy. Well, MJ had been killed in my country, okay? But let me tell you, his legacy will still live on. For what he has done, many more, including me, stood up and fought for peace because I said, this must stop. Yes, the human in me can deceive me. But let me tell you, the human in me unleashed the power of truth. Yes, the human in me can trap me. But let me tell you, the human in me showed me an opening door. Yes, the human in me didn't know about peace before or didn't care. But the same human in me know that peace is not about going and fighting like MJ did. Peace is not about staying at home and saying, I have a good life. Or peace is not about watching TV or having a good job and say that you made it through life. No. Peace is about not staying silent. Peace is about raising your voice when something is not right. Peace is about stepping out of your boundaries and your comfort zone. Peace is about remembering those who have impacted our society and salute them. I salute them. My friends, have that courage to bring light where there's darkness. Earn that knowledge that peace is not only about yourself, but for others as well. Gain that understanding and authority that you should shape even one person's life, even if it's your neighbor. Then what is peace? Peace is about looking at each other in this room. Different backgrounds, different houses. We came from different houses, of course. Different culture. Looking at each other and saying that we are all one. My name is Deborah Tshidimu. Thank you.
As we all embark on a spiritual journey, we all start from a place of origin. At birth, most of us are identified as a certain sex and a certain race, but we're often brought into communities of faith. Wherever we come from, our spirituality can be ignited from any of those things. Whether you grew up in a denomination, like the many Mennonites here in Goshen, Indiana, or with immigrant parents, you're likely to follow a spiritual journey that puts you at ease. You see, you're content with a comfortable, relaxed spiritual journey where you go through the motions, muster a generic essence of the religion you associate with, and the rest is history. But what I believe is that as you explore other faiths, you gain more knowledge, not just from a religious standpoint, but with an awareness of intersecting cultures and lifestyles. In order to make peace in the world we live in today, we are called to recognize the importance of understanding, exploring, and respecting other religious perspectives. Many of us are put into situations that have an immense amount of pressure. In sports, we can see players from an array of professions that are able to deliver under pressure. Michael Jordan in the 1998 NBA Finals, Tom Brady in Super Bowl 51, Tiger Woods in the 2018 PGA Tour, just to name a few. Although we're not actually in the same situations as these athletes, we are still faced with decisions that impact our lives. So, what do we do when we're under pressure? How do we deal with respecting and appreciating different religious traditions, especially ones outside of our own? Growing up, I thought at first that not everything was in my own hand. You see, my faith was already determined by my parents. I was an immigrant from Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world. My family was Hindu, a religion that makes up approximately 9% of Bangladesh's minority religions, with Islam being the majority. My parents emphasized the importance of holding on to my culture, my heritage, and never forgetting where I came from. As I walked through the streets of New York, latching onto my parents' side, I realized that America was a foreign land to me. My mind was like a sponge, absorbing every little thing that came my way. I started becoming more and more American, adapting an accent that was sure to be recognizable in any region of the United States. I started learning the culture day by day, from the politics to the media to the language itself. But the biggest cultural shock that I discovered was the fact that my religious journey had just begun. When was the last time you visited a denomination other than your own to experience worship? When was the last time you truly sought out to understand the religious perspective of someone completely different than you? At the age of 9, I was first introduced to Christianity from a fairly conservative standpoint. A good friend of mine invited me to attend a youth group service with him. Several months went by. I became heavily invested in this Baptist church in northern Indiana. I was enticed by the gift of salvation and the idea that you didn't just have to be a good person to get into heaven. It even felt simpler than Hinduism. You see, Christianity is centered around just one God, the Almighty Creator, Jehovah, Yahweh. But we can look on the other hand that Hinduism holds the manifestation of infinite gods, resulting in idols of gods and goddesses. My parents grew fearful of me losing interest in their religion, but embraced my faith explorations as a sacrifice that is made by some first-generation immigrants. I'm grateful for the rich religious heritage I grew up with, and I know that will always be a part of me. My parents let me go to a Christian church twice a week, allowed me to volunteer with the congregation, and even sent me to a Christian school for my middle school and high school years. Little did I know that this was where it would all change. My transitional years at Bethany Christian High School were my biggest exposure to what the world is truly like. After my sophomore year of high school, I went to Grenada, a country in the Caribbean, with my church congregation. During the 2-week journey, we held a vacation Bible school for the kids on the island. Although it was a tourist island country, I saw that the economy was developing and went through many hardships. I didn't realize this at first, but this out-of-country experience felt fake in a way. We were spreading the word of God and the gospel to those who haven't received it, but we were in a tropical country where English was the primary language. The heat was rather the only uncomfortable thing, but there wasn't really anything that took me outside of my comfort zone. From the unoriginal gospel tracts, to the pampering by the hotel staff, to the endless devotionals, it just didn't feel like the one thing that can keep me connected to God. I wanted the impoverished kids to know more. More than just the creation story. More than just the death of Jesus Christ. More than that. If we want to create peace in the world, we have to recognize the sensitivity of different cultures. No individual would like a different faith shoved in their face, but rather showing the similarities and differences can make one more open-minded. But it had me thinking, how can I teach something that I have very little knowledge of? I felt that being comfortable and at ease, like I said before, wasn't an option, which led me to my next journey. After my junior year at Bethany, I was able to be a part of Goshen College's first ever study service theology term, which was a learning trip to Guatemala led by Keith Graber Miller. During this trip, we explored the country of Guatemala and took a difficult college-accredited course called Jesus and Vocation. This course made me think more about what I want to be in the world, but more importantly, what has God called me to be? I felt more connected with God and knew that I wanted to be a helper and ultimately attend a Christian college to further my growth in faith. For many of us, we grow up with a single religion, a single faith, a single belief that has embodied who we are spiritually today. But at times, we have to realize that our lives and spiritualities can be enriched through learning other religious traditions. That's why we have pros and cons. Whether it's making a financial decision or literally moving one thing to another, we have to look at the pros and cons. So, what are the pros and cons of interfaith exploration? One of the more known cons would be the concept of regression. Change is inevitable, especially in a world that is constantly changing. Some of us are more comfortable with change than others, but it's important to remember that change is okay. Exploring the ins and outs of different beliefs doesn't help just with one's own faith, but it can help establish an understanding of others' comprehension of faith. In our day and age, we are living in a melting pot of different cultures. With reference to the First Amendment in the American Constitution, we are free to worship whatever religion we desire, a proud staple of the United States. Because of this, we can see the variety of different cultures that are represented. With the diversity of our nation, we are called to be respectful of others' religious backgrounds. That is why when we look into what different faiths have to offer, we have a better interpretation of perspectives. On the other hand, we can see how one faith may feel stronger than another. There could be a more sentimental value or feeling toward one religion over the other, but it is important to remember that we are to be a good for the world, no matter what your religious background is. Exploring other faiths helps one expand their mind and provide hospitality. We all may think we're born to one spiritual path, but learning what other religions have to offer can be a true game changer. Today, I stand as a person rooted in Christ, but I still appreciate and value my Hindu upbringing. Learning to appreciate and value different religious traditions can create peace, no matter where you are. Peace starts with acceptance of one another, which may become discomforting. Regardless, it is important to remember that you shouldn't impose your own beliefs or spirituality on others, but instead find a middle ground, look at people from different faiths as people, not as categories or religions. We live in a diverse world with a clash of religious views throughout borders. Not everyone we meet in America is going to be Christian. Not every international student you meet practices a faith that resembles with their native country. And not everyone you meet has the same idea of peace in their own minds. It should be a necessity to understand that our views of faith are bound to be different, but we should strive to be as open-minded as possible in order to make peace in our world today. Throughout my personal experience, from Hinduism to a conservative Christian tradition to a more progressive Christian denomination, I've learned that integration is key for interfaith exploration and can help sustain people's views. I hope many can understand that it is okay to explore what the world has to offer with spirituality. It is okay to be curious and learn outside of your own spiritual path, because in a way, you're embarking on a sacred journey, which doesn't just have one destination. Thank you.
Growing up, I was often described as kind, quirky, outgoing, helpful, intelligent. That is not a term often used to describe someone who is simply kind, knows how to lighten a mood, relates well with others, someone who can empathize. These are qualities I've been told I have, but especially in an academic setting, they are not often associated with intelligence. Intelligence suggests its own categories. It's getting an A+ and nothing less. It's making the dean's list every semester. It's being able to express yourself and articulate exactly what you want to say and have people understand you without circling back to clarify. This way of viewing intelligence works for some. Those who are able to look at a multiple choice exam and identify with ease that, yes, D is more correct than A or B or C. But what about those of us who don't fit this mold, who see the value in B as well as D? I celebrate an A- and don't find undue disappointment in getting a B. I sometimes find it difficult to articulate myself and what I want to say. I know what I want to say in my head, but when I speak the words aloud, I worry I'm not being understood and may try to compensate by talking more. Already in first grade, I felt that pressure to get the words right. One week at Waterford Elementary School, our teacher told us she was going to give us an extra challenging word on our spelling test. She said everyone who spelled the word gingerbread correctly would find a gingerbread cookie in their mailbox at the end of that day. Of course, anyone would want to find a sweet surprise in their cubby. But even more than that, I was afraid of how it would look if everyone in my class received a cookie and I did not. Would my classmates think I was dumb? Would my teacher still like me? My first grade brain came up with a solution to this dilemma. I thought, if I could have the word written on a slip of paper, then when I went to take the test, there would be no risk in disappointing the important people in my life. You might guess what happened. Sitting there, taking my quiz paper out, I didn't get farther than G, I, N, G, before my teacher grabbed my wrist, took me into the classroom and scolded me for what I did. I felt ashamed and confused. My goal had been to impress my teacher and peers, but the way I went about it led to the opposite outcome. As I reflect on this story, I think I'm not alone. Many of us are afraid to be seen as less than when we are called on to do something that doesn't come as easily. In school settings, from elementary all the way through college and beyond, we elevate a few and marginalize the rest. Think of the honor roll or the dean's list. Are they supposed to be rewards, motivators to excel? Perhaps. But from my perspective, they end up serving as yet another reminder to many of us that we're not quite there. We're not quite making the grade. Measuring success in our society is complex and full of risk. In school systems, we are eager to separate and divide people. Winners and losers, gifted and ordinary, fast learners and slow learners, those who read early and those who read late, those who receive cookies and those who do not. For example, at Cherna Elementary, where I'm completing my year-long social work internship, they have a program called High Ability, where a small percentage of 4th and 5th grade students from all of the elementary schools combined get accepted into a classroom based on their academic achievement. It's almost completely based on their academic achievement, and these students are told they have the highest IQs. They're told if their scores are high enough, they will advance to the next level, like a video game. It's good to be challenged and recognized. But that separation sends both groups the message that they are different from one another, furthering the divide. Back when I was in elementary school, the program was called Gifted and Talented. Well, the name has changed. The messages sent to those in and out of the program remain the same. These are the gifted and talented kids. And if you're not in that cohort, you're okay, you're fine, but not special. The program sends a message: who is better? Who is smarter? We do this in elementary school, we do this in middle school, we do this in high school, we do this here at Goshen College. My first point is we are in a rush to measure students and predict who is going to succeed. My second point, we're often wrong. In the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell refers to the psychologist Lewis Terman, who studied school children in California in the 1920s. He identified children whose IQ averaged more than 140. followed their careers and achievements sure that they would become world-famous policymakers, artists, scientists, and Nobel Prize winners. Terman's views are reflected in educational policy today. Children in grades 3 through 8 take the ISTEP test in English language arts and mathematics every spring. If they don't pass, they're at risk of being held back. There are many other tests to look forward to. There's the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, the LSAT, the GMAT, and those are just to name a few. We correlate these high scores on tests with success. But Gladwell reminds us that high test scores are incomplete predictors of success. The majority of children from his study had what society would consider to be ordinary careers. The odds of predicting extraordinary careers could have been managed just as easily by flipping a coin. IQ tests known as convergence testing focus on picking the best answer out of a set of options. However, Gladwell points to another way of predicting success in the real world. It's called divergence testing, which requires imagination. Students are asked, for example, to list as many uses as they can for a blanket. A blanket can cover a bed. A blanket can also be used to make a fort with 2 chairs. A student who is good at convergence might be able to quickly memorize a formula. A student who is good at the divergence test has a mind that leaps from one possibility to another, making connections. Gladwell asked this question: which one of these 2 students might do the imaginative work that would win a Nobel Prize? Suddenly, it's not so clear. In my third and final point, I want to emphasize the steps we can take to maximize learning and opportunities that bring out the best in people. For example, in the book Whistling Vivaldi, the social psychologist Claude Steele describes both the threat of stereotypes and the power of an uplifting narrative. When they face negative stereotypes, female math majors do worse on tests. If students of color are only given texts by white authors about white characters, they may question whether they belong in that school setting. Stereotypes about age, gender, sexual orientation, and race can undermine our performance in many areas. But he goes on to describe ways to push back against stereotypes. For example, first-generation students at Goshen College might be filled with doubt about whether they are really college material. Hearing stories of other first-generation students who have come to Goshen and have been successful can help them to believe in themselves. Additionally, some people with learning impediments, which are often undiagnosed, will flourish in their own time, especially with encouragement. In 5th grade, Trisha's teacher, Mr. Fokker, asked her to read aloud from Charlotte's Web. She began to stumble and her classmates laughed. He said, "Stop. Are all of you so perfect that you can look at another person and find fault with her?" Mr. Fokker and Trisha worked together for months on letters and words until one day he put a book in front of her and asked her to read. Almost as if light had poured into her brain, the words started to take shape on the page as they never had before. Slowly, she read a sentence, and then another, and finally she read a paragraph, and she understood the whole thing. She didn't notice that Mr. Fokker had tears in his eyes. That little girl was the New York Times best-selling author, Patricia Polacco. I had my own struggles with reading as a child. I compensated to the point where I generally do fine in classes, but when I'd go to take a test, I wouldn't always do as well, making it look like I wasn't trying. It wasn't until my sophomore year of college that I was diagnosed with a reading impairment and completed a 1.5 years of vision therapy. This helped my eyes to begin working better together as a team, increasing my ability to track words on a page and better understand what I was reading. Vision and therapy empowered me to articulate these feelings, giving me an increased understanding and empathy for those who share similar struggles. This speech is not a call for lowering standards or encouraging any of us to settle for less. Grades and the Dean's List and challenging tests can serve as important motivators and measures. But to stop there makes measuring success and intelligence incomplete. How can we enable everyone to flourish? Our calling should be to seek out the talent and intelligence in each person, recognizing that everyone has their own story and challenges. In a society so quick to judge, we need to honor each individual as unique and worthy. As my supervisor tells the students at Chandler Elementary, it doesn't matter if you've won or lost the cookie jar game. Everyone deserves a piece of chocolate, even if the winner gets two.
It's pretty warm here today, right? Okay, so after watching GC students maneuver the icy sidewalks in January and even today, walking like penguins, I thought about this. And this question comes up whenever we are talking about climate change. It is, and I'm asking you, do you care about polar bears? I'm standing on thin ice, guys. I need a reply. Do we care about polar bears? Yes. I mean, like really care to the extent that you'd be willing to share your house with them or have them in a walk-in freezer or even your fridge. Do you care to that extent? Nope, I don't think so. So now that the ice is broken, let's move to serious discussions. After the cold week we had at the end of January, the question many people had, including the president, was, why do we have a cold winter when it's supposed to be getting warmer? Or simply, where's our good old global warming? First, it's important to understand the difference between weather and climate. Weather is short-term changes in our atmosphere, minutes, days, maybe weeks, whereas climate is the weather of a place over a long period of time, years, decades, centuries. Borrowing the analogy used by New York Times, weather is how much money you have in your pocket today, whereas climate is your net worth. While portions of US were experiencing deep freeze, many parts of the planet were getting record-breaking heat waves. Australia, for example. When we average these temperatures out over our planet, we see that the hotter temperatures are tipping the scale. Like Marshall Shepard, former president of American Meteorological Society, said, it's not where you live warming, it's global warming. And this global warming is one of the many phenomena of climate change. Our oceans are warming up, ice sheets are shrinking, weather patterns are getting more erratic. Frequency of extreme weather events like hurricanes, storms, forest fires, and flood is increasing. And I know it's very hard to care about polar bears and penguins because we just don't know them. But it gets easier when we see people in Bangladesh going through flood year after year. It gets even easier when it's our friends and families in Florida and California going through hurricanes and storms and fires. But it all becomes a reality when you rush to your basement every hour just to see if it's flooded or not. The flood Goshen received last year will happen again and again, and our infrastructures are not equipped to keep up with it. Even when the effects of climate change come knocking at our doors and we don't respond, what exactly are we waiting for? I have been in a position of environmental privilege, as have many of you. And maybe we'll get lucky, and we will never face huge consequences within our lifetime. But our children and grandchildren definitely will, and they'll ask us, why didn't you do anything when you should have? Baba Diom was right. In the end, we only love what we understand. We conserve only what we are taught. And right now, we should teach ourselves and be taught how our actions are leading to our eventual downfall. Okay, it's really getting hot. So one of the many arguments that climate change deniers have is that the change in climate is natural and that there's no need to worry. Yes, the change, or we have had naturally occurring climate change, but none of the natural causes of climate variations can account for the warming we observe today. Increase in greenhouse gases through use of fossil fuels, cutting down of trees, especially after the Industrial Revolution, has led to increased change in our climates. And climate change happens for a reason. Right now, that reason is us. So, here's my first point. Speak up. If you don't know anything about it, listen. If you think you know nothing about it, ask. If you still think it's fake news, read about it in reliable news sources and scientific reports. If the world's climate scientists were so good at conspiracy, they would be better off putting their astounding skills to do basically anything else that's more cheery than predicting gloom and doom. It's disappointing and sad when our arguments have nothing to do with any sane, rational reasons, but simply where we fall on the political spectrum. Climate change isn't just words. It's real, and it's scary. It recognizes no borders and knows no walls. My title, Why Climate Change, represents a lot of things. Why is climate change happening? Why does it matter? Why should we talk about it? Why are people denying it? And these are some of the things that I'll be focusing on today. So, United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, released their latest reports a few months ago. Those who are concerned about the legitimacy of IPCC. So IPCC is the UN body for assessing the science related to climate change. And it was established by United Nations Environmental Program and World Meteorological Society in 1988 to provide regular scientific assessments concerning climate change. It was a political move, but the politicians are not listening to the advice that's given by the report. So the most recent 2018 report highlights the number of impacts that could be avoided by limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to 2 degrees Celsius or more. I know, half a degree Celsius, you don't really notice it in your tea, do you? Well, but the Earth does. Half a degree difference can reduce the predicted sea level rise by 4 inches and lower the related risk to 10 million people, and maybe save 10 to 30% of our existing coral reefs. Let's be honest. Climate change isn't as bad as we think. It's worse. One of the consequences that we are seeing today is an increase in the frequency of extreme weather events. This affects the infrastructures of towns and cities, access to drinking water, and other resources that supports daily life. It drives displacement of populations. And since 2008, an average of 26.4 million people per year have been displaced from their homes by disasters brought on by natural calamities. 85% of those weather-related. This is equivalent to approximately 1 person displaced every second. Displacement results in migration and ensures national and international tensions. Worldwide Fund scientists have estimated that most species on this planet, including plants, will have to quote-unquote move faster than 1,000 meters per year if they are to survive. How are the plants going to move? I don't know. And I wish I could say that extinction of some species doesn't really matter and that we have plenty of fish in the sea, but then I'd be lying. Because our seas and oceans have more plastics in them while the aquatic population is dwindling. Beyond numbers and figures, what is climate change about? It's about the soil being unable to produce any more food. It's about Earth becoming less habitable, about food insecurity, about vulnerable people who then become recruit targets for terrorist groups. It's about people risking their lives fleeing across oceans and across deserts to escape famine and drought and war. It's about developed countries' complacency towards climate responsibility. It's about those countries refusing to host people. It's about international tension and hostility. It's about us, our present, our future, and our planet. The urgency cannot get any clearer. Despite what we think, we no longer have the luxury of planning without urgent action. National and international governments hold a lot of power to create unprecedented and remarkable changes. The most notable step would be to drastically reduce the use of fossil fuels while ramping up renewables like solar, wind, geothermal, tidal, and more. This will require huge political shifts that may seem unfathomable, especially in the light of current administration's climate decisions. While the US cannot officially exit the Paris Agreement a few days after the 2020 elections, the administration has proposed canceling the Clean Power Plan, which reduces emissions from power plants, and decreasing fuel efficiency in our vehicles, the biggest source of carbon pollution. So please, vote wisely the next time you go and vote. Countries should also drop subsidies from production and use of fossil fuels, and globally, also from forest-destroying agricultural expansion. Countries in European Union, Canada, Mexico have introduced tax on carbon, which basically or ideally makes the emitters pay for the cost of carbon that they produce. Carbon taxing should be made global and should be more strictly regulated. I think I'll put these back on now. As individuals, there's a lot we can do as well. Use public transport, ride our bikes more if it's just going to the grocery, share our car sharings, switching to electric and hybrid vehicles, decreasing energy consumption, using energy-efficient appliances, good insulation in homes, less consumption. Shopping is not therapeutic. Less waste, more recycle. We can save a lot of money, resources, and reduce carbon emission by making sure that not all the recyclable waste is going into landfill, and also the food waste. And eating less meat. We don't have to completely, I'm not saying that everyone should be vegan from tomorrow, but at least let's reduce how much meat we consume on a daily basis. Ultimately, it means that we should work towards stopping the activities that cause it, enhance our resilience to its effects, and talk about it. It's not going to be easy. Nothing ever really is. But it would be foolish to do nothing about it. Healthy planet and stable climate are not political issues. It's about families, communities, ecosystems, diversity, biodiversity, and humanity. This, right here, right now, is where we begin. And I'm going to put my jacket back on. While we are living in our air-conditioned bubble, we often forget that people do not have the same privilege everywhere else. Just because it's cold in winter doesn't mean there's no change in our climate. Thank you.
Let's all give our speakers another round of applause, please. Excellent as always. Now I'd like to invite our judges to slip away to that secret room where you'll tally your scores, confer, and come up with our top two finishers. And while our judges are deliberating, in just a moment, I want to invite you to join us for some refreshments in the Yost room, as is our tradition. I'm going to give them a couple minutes to find their secret location. Adrienne, you know where to go, right? You know the passcode? It's my birthday. All right, so for those of you unfamiliar with where the Yost room is, it's out these doors. To my left, your right, and then immediately to the left, we've got some light refreshments. Enjoy talking about the speeches, catching up with some other folks that you haven't run into before. After the judges have reached their decisions, we'll call everybody back in here and announce our winners. See you soon. We'd like to thank the judges for their fine work, and we're now ready to announce the two top winners of the 2019 C. Henry Smith Peace Oratorical Contest. Would you please come to the platform as your name is announced? In second place, and recipient of $250 award is Mandira Panta. And now, our first place winner and recipient of a $500 award and the opportunity to represent Goshen College in the national competition is Emily Stoltzfus. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of you for your excellent audience participation. All four of these speech givers were phenomenal, and you gave them the attention they deserved. We invite you back next year for the 2020 contest. Good evening.